Okay, guys, once again, thank you for tuning in. We are back, and today we are going to talk about the literature on social justice mathematics. So, to get us started, I would like to base my conversation for today out of a book that I read on Society and School that was published by John Dewey in the year 1907, if I'm not wrong, when he said the best or even wisest parents would want for their children. That is what all society should advocate for all children. So I'll be coming back to that again and again, but for now, let us see what social justice mathematics look from our own perspective. Uh, Paul, what do you think?
Okay. Carrie Coker in her article, Carrie Coker 2018 in her article, she said social justice mathematics is also called critical mathematics. And I think incorporating the practice of critical pedagogy and teaching for social justice is crucial for student success. What do you think?
Yeah, so basing on what Paul said, from literature, I think Battelle 2013 and Gonzalez 2009, and then from critical theories perspective, they define social justice as the critical mathematics or teaching mathematics for social justice. So, with this being said, if I'm relating this to what happens in the classroom and then how mathematics is related to social justice, I would um, consider if I am looking at the place of mathematics in my everyday life. So if we are considering in that way, then now let's see how best we can situate mathematical context in real life situations. So now, do we get to have like students do regular activities that helps them to explore the connection between classroom mathematics and
Mhm.
real life mathematics? So that's what I'm still.
Actually, when you say that, something came to my mind, Abigail, on what social justice mathematics is. And well, you say that it should be teaching practices that are fair and that promote equity. But my again and again question or struggle would be, how do we attain that? Uh, I don't know if you guys came across something of the sort, or your thoughts on how do you attain a social justice practice in a mathematics classroom?
So as we look at incorporating social justice issues in our mathematics lessons, teaching for social justice begins with an understanding of critical pedagogy, which
Mhm.
requires us to carry out classroom practices that empower students to question, analyze, and increase awareness of the inequities inside and outside the school setting. It is not, remember, it is not about teachers' personal agenda, but students' voices to be heard.
So, so can we just say that if we are looking at equitable distribution of fundamental resources and let's say recognition of justice, we can also think about within all groups like students having a voice, and if they have a voice, so for instance, if we are looking at students' suggestions and then whatever they think about the activities they do in class, then we can achieve social justice.
Well, Abigail, I don't know. In 1970, Freire wrote a book on pedagogy of the oppressed, and in this book, he emphasized on two lines of or systems of education. One, he referred to the banking concept method, and the other one was problem posing method. But in banking concept method, he referred to students as the oppressed. So my question, coming back to what you said, you talked about distributing resources equally or equitable distribution
Mhm.
of resources. Do we say that, can we assume that whoever has distribute like resources distributed equally among them cannot be an oppressed? when do we get to decide that somebody is oppressed?
I think if there is no equitable or equal access to some opportunities or resources.
So let's talk about it in the class, in the class context. Because in the same book, he referred to social justice mathematics, or he talked about towards the libertarian system of education where learners' critical consciousness is awakened. So the reason why I brought up the question is because I might be well equipped with resources, but my critical consciousness is not awakened, and in that case, I'm still oppressed.
In that perspective, maybe we may say the students may be aware of some of the injustices that take place in the teaching and learning process, but they may be learning them theoretically. But now putting in context or putting it in practice or implementing them may be the one which is a challenge.
I think it should be in a way that we don't have anything like we have like a minority group in a class and then their lives are being undermined, or well, I think there should be like a recognition of marginalized groups as equals. That's what I'm thinking about. Yeah.
But what do you think? How does our system of education support the banking concept method? Because as a teacher, you might want to try and help your student, but the question is how.
So when you say the banking method, do you mean
I mean, so if the teacher owns the knowledge, the student's role is to listen and get whatever the teacher is saying, store it, and wait for some time, maybe in the semester or at the end of the semester when they are supposed to respond to questions brought up by the teacher. And when you get all questions right, or depending on how you perform on the questions, you are ranked as best or intelligent.
I think by incorporating the social justice issues in our daily lessons, the learners become aware of their rights, or they become conscious of their rights, and as a result, they are able to voice their concern.
yeah, I think I agree with what Paul is saying, because if we model the mathematics we are teaching to include like social justice tasks, then I think yes, we will get to that point where we'll achieve that goal.
Yeah, and also I sometimes think that we confuse uh, banking concept method with problem posing. Uh, there is a tendency of sometimes a teacher bringing a method, and in his mind or in his philosophy, it seems to be working within the problem posing method. And my question was, and this goes back to Freire's book, who chose the content that students are supposed to be exposed to? Did we consult students, for example? And as a teacher, you are just an individual with certain biases. So when you allow your authority as a teacher to affect or to influence what students are going to learn, do we still consider that as a justice issue?
I think preparation of any curriculum puts in consideration the issues of the student first. The student comes first. But when you talk
Do you mean should or do? Is it something in existence or?
do,
Okay, so it is in existence.
yeah, the issues of the students are given priority. But when we come to issues of preparation of classroom lessons,
Right.
teachers are the ones who play a critical role, and they decide the kind of activities to be carried out within the classroom based on the goals of that particular class or lesson. And mostly, you realize that teachers will select activities that will be engaging to the students, that will be problematic, but within the reach of the learners. Why? It is mainly to enhance or activate the understanding of learners.
So, Paul, if I'm not getting you wrong, and please correct me if I misquote you, the teacher is the subject. Because the reason why I'm saying the teacher is the subject, because according to what you said, they set the goals for the learning. They decide how these goals will be achieved. And then, in that case, the role of the student is to be that object. Isn't that it?
I think the role of the learner mostly will be as a beneficiary of the content material selected by the instructor, because the instructor is quite aware as he selects the content material, he selects material that are relevant with the needs of the learners.
So yeah, so with this being said, it means that if a teacher is deciding on which content or activities to give students, then the students have to have a voice, one, because then the students will be like, okay, why do I need to learn this? How is it relevant? Or why, how will this matter in my life, right? So then they, if we ask ourselves these questions, as let's say we are putting ourselves in the shoes of the students, then if the teacher is consulting the students to see what they are thinking, then yes, they can model the questions to fit this. And this is when the mathematics becomes culturally relevant, because yes, they are looking at how it will benefit them in their lives or their experience. So I think students should have a voice when deciding content in the classroom or activities. Yeah.
I think my opinion is bending more close to what Abigail is saying than what you're saying, Paul. And my reason is this. I think we're abandoning the teacher, because if the teacher has to do all this, we have to ask ourselves the question of how do we prepare the teachers. And even if we don't ask the question, today we live in a system where you don't know exactly where your students are coming from. Well, you might know locations, but you don't really know in context the cultures of the students. So if you have to incorporate all these cultures into your lesson, that's something I don't think you prepare